Live struggle legacy. It's a whole movement.
Hey everybody, it's your boy MP, Live Struggle Legacy, and welcome to the Live Struggle Legacy Podcast, Season 2. Now real quick, if you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button, that like button, that notification button, drop a comment, share. If you're listening on a streaming service, make sure you leave us a review, tell us what you think. If you're looking to promote your business, man, holler at me. We are looking for sponsors. We'll give you a shout out, make you a commercial, or even let you come on the show and talk about it. Okay, so with no further ado, I have a very special guest in the house. So this is our very first female guest on the Live Struggle Legacy Podcast. So Catalina Rises.
That's right.
She's going to tell her story. She's going to tell us her life struggle. So real quick, I'll tell you how this came to be. So first of all, Catalina, thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
So we were in a jam a couple, what was it, like a couple months ago.
December 5th.
December 5th. We were in a jam. I was supposed to record a show with my bro. He canceled on me in the last minute. I got another one of my bros on deck. He canceled on me last minute. So I got kind of desperate and I just put it into the Facebook ethers. And I put in a post about, if you have a story and it's in alignment with our brand, let me know. Now, the incredible thing, so shout out to everybody that responded, because I got so much response that I wasn't able to, I'm still kind of following up with some people. So we got some incredible stories out there, people wanting to share their stories on the platform. But Catalina's story really stood out because I felt like it was in alignment with the brand. I mean, she's got an incredible story, which I will let her tell. But I'm excited to have her on the show. I'm excited to learn her story as you all learn her story. So, Catalina, first of all, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show today. So, tell us a little bit of who is Catalina Rises and what's your life struggle?
So I wanted to first start off with that time so I'm never on Facebook. I'm hardly ever on Facebook. So it was very bizarre that I was on there at the time that I saw the post. And we just had this synergy because of your passion to help others, your passion for music, and your story. And although your story is different than mine, there are some parallels there. And so that synergy, I think, brought it. But I will say that everything that happens in my life, I manifest. And I manifested to be on a podcast. I didn't know the how or the when, but I knew it was going to happen. And it just so happened that there were some circumstances that was happening that week. And then I saw your post and I was like, this is the universe saying, here you are. And so here I am, like more than a month later. So thank you very much for having me. This is my first podcast as well, so yay.
Excellent.
And okay, so my story, is that where we're starting?
So yeah, tell us about, so I don't want to give out any, spoilers. So
let's start from, let's see. Most of my life I have felt like I was a victim. I lived in a very victim state of mind, and many can see why when I tell my story, but we're going to flip that at the end there. But I was born to a 16-year-old drug dealer in Brooklyn, Coney Island, and my mom was 23. She was a 23-year-old prostitute, and it's on my, well, not the prostitute or drug dealer part, that's not on my birth certificate, but the ages are. And so, looking at my original, I should have brought it, that would have been really cool, my original birth certificate, and looking at the ages and looking at my story that's written in my foster care, I just gave that away. In my foster care records, it really had me dive into who am I as a person. So that identity crisis really set in early on. There was lots of traumatic things that happened when I was younger. from abuse, lots of different abuse in various ways. Witnessing abuse to my grandmother, my abuela, and just being a part of that world in Brooklyn, that instead of a child learning to be a child and learning things and playing and enjoying life, it became a matter of survival at a very, very young age. My first memory is when I was 2.5 years old. And so if you think back in your life, usually your first memory is of a traumatic experience, whether it be falling off your bike or something, but it's typically something traumatic. And so just having to grow up in that realm, learning to survive very, very young, that created a subconscious of unworthiness, of I'm not capable, I'm not good enough, all of those things that are created throughout your experience as a child, from your parents telling you some, things, or from being treated certain ways and being witness to certain things. And so the point of Catalina Rises and who I am today is to speak to those traumas and teach that there is another way that we can come out of those traumas and heal from them. I am in no way a counselor. I am not a social worker. What I do is I tell my story and how I built the bridge from victimhood and from just survival mode, really, to a place of confidence and to a place of peace and helping others. And I'm still not fully there, right? So healing is a journey. And I'm definitely not fully healed. Nobody ever really is, but I'm definitely in a place where I feel like I could be of help to those that need it. I feel like I've been rambling for a really long time. I'm not used to that.
That's okay. I want to dive into something real quick. All right?
Yeah.
So forgive me because
No, please.
I want to just make sure that the audience heard. I know a little bit. I don't know a whole lot.
Uh-huh.
And so, I know this is your life story. So if you don't want to dive too deep,
No,
I
go
get
ahead.
that.
Keep me on track because ADHD, this is like bouncing balls up in here.
That's okay. I got you. So it all started with your dad, who was a 16-year-old drug dealer, you said, and your mom, who was a 23-year-old prostitute, right? So I'm interested, and I know our audience is interested, and I know you weren't there to see it, but is there any tea that you can spill on how that came to be?
I don't know. My theory is that I probably was conceived in like a 65 Pontiac Catalina, and that's how I got my name.
Yeah.
But I did read in the records from my foster home, my foster agency, Catholic Bureau. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that, but so my agency that I kind of was awarded the Court of New York for quite some time, they had their records in there, and so I wasn't able to live with my mother. She was out on the streets. The reason why I could piece some things together is because when I was with my dad, he brought me home to his mom, to my abuela, and then he would often take me out, and I remember going to behind dumpsters with brown paper bags, and I remember him exchanging things. I was very, very aware as a child of being a 2.5-year-old that has been through that kind of trauma, very, very aware of my surroundings, and so although I didn't understand it obviously at the time, as I got older, and now it's 7 years old and I'm seeing things happening, I could, in hindsight, he was taking me to the drug deals. Fast forward to my mother, how I was able to piece that truth together. I was 12 the first time that I was reunited with her, and the agency allowed me to go stay with her in New York, and clearly did not check where we were staying, but we were in the basement with my uncles from another country. And so being that age, I was definitely able to piece together some truths to what she was doing. just by watching her interactions and being in that environment myself and in that trauma myself. So what I read and what I see on my birth certificate, and then putting my own experiences together with that, I was able to figure that out.
That she was...
Definitely, yeah. These were not my uncles.
Okay.
There were many of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was her place of business, so to
Correct.
speak.
And
Okay.
yeah, it was in a basement. I remember there was a shower and there was a mattress in the shower. I remember we had tripe. There was like stomach.
You mean like menudo?
It was like cow stomach.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like it. I remember that. But I remember like crouching down and learning how to eat with them. So lots of memories in my head of the old story is what I say. It's the old timeline. Necessary for me to go through in order to be who I am today. And so that is another message that I want to share, is that whatever trauma, whatever struggle that you're going through and that you've been through, that isn't who you really are, but that is what you had to go through to get to where you're going.
Yeah.
The important piece to get to where you're going is to look within yourself, because you know all the answers and you have to unravel all the bullshit that you've been taught your whole life, and what your parents are telling you and what your teachers are telling you and what your religious sectors are telling you, and all the things that you're experiencing. If you go within you and really sit with yourself in silence, and I'm not sure how that would, I think that's why many times inmates do go towards a spirituality or a religion, because they have that ability to sit with themselves, and so maybe they find themselves there. And so again, just finding that the struggles that you've been through, you have to go through in order to get to where you're going. But where you're going doesn't need to be on this pattern of chaos and on this pattern of self-destruction and on this pattern of self-hatred and just, all the subconscious that we are just allowing ourselves to live by. We're capable and we're worthy, and we are meant for so much more.
So I want to get into that moment when you sat with yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you had your awakening or your rising, so to speak, right? But before we do, you mentioned foster care. You mentioned being with your dad when you were maybe 2.5, these being the earliest memories, maybe not so great memories.
Mm-hmm.
So I take it that at some point you ended up in foster care.
On my 7th birthday.
Okay.
So on my 7th birthday, and this was because I was living with someone who was going to kill me. And
At 7 years old?
Before then. And here's how I know this was because that person, and I cannot say who it is at this time, but that person would have me in Brooklyn wait on one side of the street on the sidewalk, and I'm 3-4 years old. Stay there, don't move, and the light would be red, and she would cross, and she would go to the other side of the street, and then as soon as the light would turn green, she would motion me to come over, and hopes that I would walk out into traffic. So with that being said, it's very odd to be an adult afraid of traffic living in the city. So I would grab strangers' hands sometimes if I had to, but that was a trigger for me. Happy to say I can walk across the street by myself now. But it was really, really hard for quite some time. I was terrified of traffic. So because this person, I was also locked in closets and starved and made to experience things that no child should. I always knew that there were others that had it way worse than I did, even though it's not a competition. It's just I just was hanging on, and I wasn't sure why sometimes. But it was because of this person that there was another person in my life that was very good to me and was a protector, a spirit angel, who said that to my father, talked him into putting me into foster care, otherwise I would not be alive. And I think she did what she thought was best for me at the time, to help me, although foster care was not a picnic either.
So this person, we don't need to mention, was like a caregiver, so to speak, or at least somebody that your father left you in the care of?
Correct.
And then this guardian angel, so to speak, convinced your father to do something better for you, to protect you.
Right.
And that's where foster care
Came
started.
in, and on my 7th birthday, I drove down a very long driveway to what looked like a mansion, and it was a Cinderella life from there on out. It was lots of nurturing and caring for other people, but never me. And I came last, and it was Christmases without Christmas presents for me.
And this
for
is in a
others.
foster home?
Oh yeah. And foster care, I describe as legalized slavery, and I'm not sure that that's where it is, but if there's any foster kids out there listening now, or those that have just aged out, I haven't been in foster care for quite some time, but that's what it was. To me, that's how I explained it. It's not a safe space, and it does need to be, much like the prison system, the foster care system also needs help, and it needs revamping. However, if you are in foster care or you just came out of it, you can and will succeed, and just tapping into yourself and just choosing. It's really, really difficult. But one of the things that I can say is, why couldn't we do whatever we can, like whatever we wanted? If you want to be anything and have anything, like why can't we lift ourselves up? We've been in the shittiest shit of places. Like we've been in foster care, we've been on the streets, we've been in these traumatic situations of chaos and destruction and violence. Why can't we do better? Like, why can't we be a successful CEO? Why can't, whatever your dream is, why couldn't we do that? We're strong enough, clearly.
Yeah.
And so that's the part where my passion lies in, because it's like so many of us are choosing the wrong direction. We're not choosing. We are being led by our subconscious, and we're being led by circumstances instead of choosing and having belief in ourselves. But that's the freaking hard part. Like, how do you believe in yourself when you've been told that you're a piece of shit your whole life? Like, how is that?
Yeah, no, I can't imagine. And I'm sure we have people in the audience that have had maybe a similar experience to yours, or at least know what it's like to be in foster care. But how long were you in foster?
13 years.
13 years. Okay, so for maybe some of us who know nothing about what that's like, and maybe for those who maybe need to know a little bit more about what goes on in those places, so that maybe we can make changes in some of those places in the future, can you maybe share some of that experience? And
So what I will say, the experience of being in foster care for myself was I went to therapy a couple of years ago, and I said, I'm just so tired. I feel like I'm just used. I feel like I'm just being used. And that's how I felt my entire life. And my therapist said, well, you're quite usable. You need to start doing for you. And that's where I first learned you come last in foster care, at least from my experience, right? Because there are some great foster homes out there. I do think they are few and far between. I've helped mentor some foster kids, and there's lots of things that happen, such as sexual abuse and starvation, and just being in unsafe environments. I was in a very, very great home structurally. It was a family, and this was for the large part. I've been in multiple foster homes, but for this one particular one, beautiful home, beautiful family from the outside. But there were lots of things that went on behind closed doors that wasn't okay. And so when you're in that environment and you are trusting your counselor at school, and you go and tell your counselor, and then your counselor is friends with your foster mother and goes and tells your foster mother, that's just a whirlwind of trouble for you when you get home. So you learn not to trust when you're young. Just having to slave, over other people and make sure that their beds are made and their food is cooked and their closet is clean, and the floors need to be scrubbed. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen Cinderella, but it was literally like that.
And this was, you were with different families for 13 years, or was it?
For the most part, I was with one.
This the Cinderella place.
This is one. And that is because I went back there and I kept wanting to go back there, and people would think that, my social workers would think that I went back there because I loved it there. And why wouldn't I? It's just a beautiful place, and it's a beautiful home. And the truth is that that's the home where my dad left me. And so I thought he would come back for me. And if I wasn't there, then I would miss that ship, so to speak. Which is very sad, it, again, very necessary. Everything that I went through, I can look in hindsight and see that it was very necessary. I just wish I would have woken up a little bit sooner than I did. I think my reality, I've been on this path to healing for the last 3 years, most intensively for the last year.
Okay, so is this healing path of these last 3 years, is this like, of these last 30 years, is this comparable like to what you described as that inmate moment when you sit with yourself? Like, is this your aha moment? Is this your rising, so to speak?
So I think that everyone, if they're lucky, because sometimes people want to escape a little early on in life. I've been suicidal previously, and I remember being suicidal at one time because I was lonely and I felt like there was nobody there for me. I remember being suicidal another time because I was just, and more recently, within, the last decade or so, because I was just so freaking exhausted. I was just tired of taking care of everyone else. And I think everybody has a rock bottom, if they're lucky. They've got a rock bottom. And my rock bottom wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't, like I got caught or I was, it was that I was extremely codependent on someone, and that someone decided that they no longer wanted me in their life. And that was the first time that I had ever fully trusted someone. That was the first time that I ever felt at home. And to have that rug wiped out from under you was my rock bottom. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who I was without this person. My kids are older now, so who am I? And this is I've never been completely there for me. And so that rock bottom, I remember, and this was within the past year, I starved myself for 2 weeks and wound up in the hospital. I dropped weight. I was devastated. I would go to work and I'd come home and I'd not eat, and I'd just either sleep, cry, or just be devastated in a room. And I did that for I did the 2 weeks. Then I had to start eating something, so I did protein shakes. And then I was secluded for about 3 months. And that's when I got my life coach. I got one that wasn't resonated, got another. Meanwhile, I had therapy too. This life coach in particular helped me so much, much more than any therapist ever did. And I really am thankful to her to give me the space to feel and to provide the tools that I needed to heal and not just mask. And I feel like that's what we do is like think positively, and that's just not it. That doesn't get you anywhere, but it'll just fall off, and then you're there with all the chaos and all the pain.
Can't fake
and
it to make it like that.
No, you cannot.
It has to be real.
Has to be authentic, 100%.
So having a life coach and the therapy kind of helped pull you through.
So 3 months of being, and then my life coach was like, I have never seen anybody quite quantum leap like this. And I still have my little fumbles here and there, but I do think that having that time to sit with myself in silence, meditate. I started awakening. I started doing listening to HZ music, so the megahertz or the hertz.
Frequency healing.
Frequency healing. That was very helpful. Journaling was very helpful, and then meditation, which I've never meditated before in my life. I was like, I can't do it. Like I can't visualize. Like I don't know how to do this. Why? Because my mind. I have ADHD first of all, and I have grown up in chaos, and so my mind is just always like, I was just describing it to a friend, walking into this room and having tennis balls just bouncing everywhere. Each one of those tennis balls is a thought in my head, and so it's never quiet. I finally freaking learned to quiet my brain. And it just took practice. And then I started going to the gym again and working out and getting that exercise and just really doing the pieces as much as I could every day. And then I got it, and it came to me in my meditations. I got much more succinct with what I wanted and who I am, and that I have control of me for the first time. I'm not here to live for others. I'm here to live for me and help others.
Yes. Well, congratulations on that. Because I know that's not easy. Some people never pull out of that. So this is all fairly new.
It is. I'm a newbie.
Okay, now I know though you had to be doing something to get through, you know, all these years of foster care, all these years of feeling like what you said. It sounds like you were feeling unloved, unwanted, used, right? And so I know we talked about music being medicine. We talked about dance, right? We didn't talk about that to them yet.
Yeah.
We talked about that in private. Yeah. So I'm wondering, did you pick up any of this? Like, what were you doing to get through, all the pain and
music?
Okay, tell us about it.
I have been singing and dancing, I think, since I, was able to, when it was a safe space to be able to. I really connected with music very early on. Would play the piano organ in one of my foster homes. I'd always try to sing, but people say that I shouldn't. I don't know, you'll have to check me out on karaoke. But yeah, I love singing, I just probably shouldn't. But music has been a savior for me, and then dance is my body movement and my getting my emotions out, my feelings out. So anything contemporary, I've never had formal training. I did dance for college, and I had my own little dance teams here and there. I danced for a professional team at one point, and an episode of a series for Disney. So I did get a little taste of like some of that, but dancing has really always been a super powerful healing tool for me because music is life to me. I get elated when I think about music. And everybody was asked, do you play instruments? Do you sing? No, but I dance. And I just love it. Yeah.
So when did you start taking that seriously to where you wanted to take it to other people and take it publicly?
I would say in college.
Okay. So this is after foster care?
After foster care. I didn't know that I was even able to go to college. I had met an ex-boyfriend, a boyfriend at the time, and he was like, "You're really smart. Why don't you go to college?" And I was in my last foster home, and I was like, "I don't know that I can. Like, nobody's ever talked to me about that. So I don't even know where to start." And so it's because of him that he pushed me to go to college. I went to Champlain in Burlington, and that's where I started dancing and created a team there. They didn't have one, so I created one. I actually went back recently, a couple years ago, and they still have a team, so that was really cool.
And you said where was that?
In Burlington, Vermont.
Vermont, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I got accepted to a private school there, and probably have the debt of a doctor, but that's okay. It was a really, really good experience to get out of that. So I was homeless for a little while in between there when the funding was taken away from foster care in New York City for a little while, and so those that were aging out wound up not having a home, because what foster home is going to keep you if they're not getting a paycheck?
So when does someone age out of foster care?
I'm not sure what it is now, but it used to be 21. And it used to be like once you graduate from high school, and you they help you get an apartment, and then they help you find a job. Pretty much that's what I was always told from my social workers, is that they kind of act as your parent, right? Because you're a ward of the state, so the state is your parent. And so anything that a parent should do, because there's many parents that don't do that. So I'm not saying everybody that has parents is lucky. I've been in enough Thanksgiving dinners to know that I'm actually the lucky one sometimes.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
So I want to take, so my idea of foster care, sure, like when I started to know the world a little bit better, I got to see it for what it was. But when you're a kid, or just a person that isn't privy to what's really going on, not even necessarily a kid, just maybe a naive mind, or a mind that's not so in the know,
right?
They make these foster homes seem like these great places filled up with these great people who are doing all these things to help these kids, right? And I mean, does that even exist, or are they most of them?
Yeah, they do exist. They do. They are far and few between.
Well, that's what I gather.
Think about how many people you know and how many friends you know that have messed up families, right? They're messed up families that are fostering kids.
Yeah.
And so some of them are doing the best that they can with what they've got. Some of them use it as means to have somebody cater to them and cook their food and clean their house and do all the things. Some of them use the person it could be way worse than that.
Yeah, I've heard awful
human trafficking within your home. And so there's lots of that. But again, we go through trauma because we are meant for something way bigger. There's nothing that I've been through that I regret.
So I want to get into that journey and what you're doing to use what helped you to help other people. But before we do, I just want to kind of tie off this line of kind of loose end real quick, because I don't fully understand, and I want to know if maybe you could shed some light on how people get into running foster home. Now, is a foster home and a group home the same thing, or is that different? Okay.
So, and also there is a distinction between an adopted person and a foster child. So a foster child is never chosen. That's what I've always thought. I'm not ever chosen. It's like the little puppy in the in the adoption thing that's like choose me, and they're not chosen. And so you just go from home to home. So oftentimes these kids are going from home to home. And I'm not sure how it is now. So I can't speak to that, but I just know out of the homes that I've been there was one home specifically, and it was my last home that I was in. It was a family in the Bronx, and they were the most amazing. It was like the universe was saving the best for last for me to give me hope to move on to the next chapter of my life, because I'm not sure I would be where I am necessarily without that pivotal moment in my life, which was that home. They lived in the Bronx. I remember going into that foster home, and they had this beautiful balcony, and I'm like, okay, waiting for the shoe to drop, like, where do I start cleaning? And they said, okay, order something. I'm like, well, I'll just share with somebody else. Like, I didn't understand normal concepts. There was laughter at the table, and I was allowed to laugh, and I laughed genuinely, and it was just like I was crying because like I hadn't laughed so genuinely before that foster home. So there are great foster homes out there, I'm sure of it. I do think that there are some that do it for the paycheck, and they'll say, oh, it's only $600 a month. But then there's portion that should be going to the child for, what do you call that? Like when they give you money per week, like an allowance. So they keep that. Then they get food and clothing stipends and things like that. So there are some that will do it for the money, and I don't like to put this out there, but I mean, it's not a secret, I'm sure, but I wish that there were more families that would do it from just their heart and just wanting to help, and also setting those boundaries with those kids. Don't feel sorry for them. Again, we're capable. We are capable, treating them as family and not having pity, but really giving them loving boundaries and not treating them like they're little criminals when they come into the house. You know, I've had some foster homes where it was that, like, oh my gosh, like, hide the silverware. Come on now. Yeah.
And then that sets them up for a whole nother thing.
I mean, that goes into their subconscious where you're thinking, oh my gosh, you know, I am what they think I am.
You treat somebody like a criminal, they're going to eventually start to act like one if they don't get treated any better.
And what if we can show them that there's a different way to not listen to Rage Against the Machine and not listen to what we've been told our whole lives?
So what have you done now or doing now? Because it seems like you're super passionate about helping people, and you're doing some motivational speaking, from what I understand. So first of all, what inspired you to want to help other people, and how are you going about doing that now? Like, what do you have going on now that you want to share?
So I have always been helping. It's been to the point where I've helped others more than I've helped myself. Now I'm in this transition of like, okay, I need to help myself before I can help others. Yeah. That's a really, really hard lesson to learn. But once you get to this feeling of peace and this feeling of compassion and being able to, and I still have ways to go. Like, I still get triggered. And guess what? Every time I'm triggered, that's an opportunity for me to learn about me. That's not on them, that's on me. You're showing me something that I need to fix, or I need to look at and investigate or heal from if I'm being triggered by you. And so I welcome, there's a line, all my adversaries came here to enlighten me. And then another line that I love from one of my songs that I listen to often is, I don't sink or swim, I just float. And the more you let go and the more you just are at peace, the easier life becomes. So I've always been helping. I feel like now I'm in a position much more to help authentically and not from this place of ego. Before, I wanted to help because it made me feel good. It made me hold on. It made me, okay, I'm not going to kill myself because that person needs me. So it was something that was needed for me to hang on to this earth. But I wasn't helping out of, yes, I've always had a great heart. I've always felt, I've always been an empath. But it's always been tied to ego. Oftentimes helping others because I would just say, okay, well, at least I'm useful there. Now I want to help others because I want to empower them. I don't want to just give or do. I want to teach and I want to empower because we are all meant for something bigger.
Absolutely. So Is there anything that we can expect from you in the future?
So my goal is to have 2 speaking events. I would love to get in front of high schools, colleges, rehabs, jails, help anyone that has not only just been in foster care, but anybody that's had any kind of trauma in their life that is just thinking that they don't know what they're here for, or that they're not capable, or they're not worthy. Those self-esteem issues, the self-concept. You know, when you don't believe in yourself, it's hard to do anything for yourself, and it's hard to make this world a better place when you're not believing in yourself. So anywhere where I can come and help and tell my story and hope that it resonates with even just one person. In those speeches, what I imagine for long term, I want them to be different. I think out of the box quite often, and so I imagine myself on some sort of big stage, right? But it's not just me speaking. Music has been such an integral part of my life. I am writing a book. Each chapter of my book has a song that has saved me in that book, in that chapter. And so I want to bring that to life on the stage. And so not only speaking, but also having like intermissions where I have some of my favorite local artists come and play or sing or perform. But having that art piece, having other people join me on that stage to help, you know, so you're not only just listening to me and my story, but you're getting a concert as well and watching dancing, and you know, it just becomes this whole collaborative artistic piece, and that's really what can come from trauma.
So, no, I love that. I love where you're going with it, and you know, I'm just curious because it seems like you've grown. Like, what did you say that was it your therapist that said that you took giant leaps? Is that
quantum leaps?
Quantum leaps.
Yeah.
Quantum leaps in your healing.
My life coach.
So if you could go back to say, like, when do you think it was the toughest for you? Well, you said the rock bottom.
Ooh,
but
yeah, toughest for me. I mean, you would think when I was 2.5, enduring something that nobody should ever endure, right? But oddly enough, toughest for me was having that codependency relationship not there anymore. They don't want you, and that rejection, and that now I'm alone. Now I don't have little kids. Now I don't have, I am alone with me, facing me by myself, and that was terrifying.
And so what advice would you have to that self in that time, and anyone else going through something similar where they feel like they're not going to make it, or they maybe don't want to keep going? What advice do you have for a person in that type of situation?
Whew. So people need you. People need you. And you need you. And so hanging on and just keep breathing. Breathe in, breathe out, repeat. Because the next day gets better, and then sometimes it gets worse, but then it gets better, and it's like 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, and you just keep, it's never straight across, it's always up and down, like your heartbeat. Your heartbeat is up and down, so is life. And it's hard. Life is very, very hard. It's hard if you sit on the couch and you are depressed. And yes, do that, feel that, validate that. Give yourself an expiration date though. Don't sit there. Give yourself a time. There were times where I would be like, okay, I'm really upset. I'm going to give myself 5 minutes. Or I need 3 days for this. But I gave myself a time, and then I'm going to snap out of it and get up and move. So movement. Know that you're needed. Know that you're here and you've been through what you've been through because you're meant for so much more. And that when you build that bridge to the other side, life is just so magical. It's so magical. It just unfolds in such... I'm here sitting with you. Like, in my first podcast that I'm like, this is just I would not think this a year ago when I'm on the floor crying my eyes out, like not wanting to survive or live. And here we are. Life gets so much more magical when you find that way. So reach out to a life coach, reach out to a therapist, reach out to a buddy. I will say this, your friends, it's not their job. It's not their responsibility. There were times where, and I do see this a lot, like, oh, I'll be there for you through thick and thin. There are times where my best friends are also going through really hard times, and they just may not have the bandwidth to take on my world. And so, yes, they're there for a hug, they're there to be a friend, but they are not professionals. And so I think I did a lot of reading, a lot of listening to music, the HC frequency music, the journaling. The life coach was pivotal, and the therapy on top of that. She actually made me go to a therapist because she wouldn't take me on otherwise because of where I was at that time. But yeah, just keep hanging on.
So that's a beautiful perspective. And so keep hanging on, keep going, don't stop, but don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it.
Absolutely not. Ask for help before you think you even need it.
Yeah.
Before you even think you need it.
But don't expect it.
I mean,
right?
If you're going to go after I was in a financial place where I was able to, barely scraping by, but I was like, okay, well, this bill's going to be on hold, and I'm going to use this to get my life coach. Everything always works out. That bill got eventually paid,
yeah.
But do what's necessary for you at that time, so long as it's a healthy route. I also didn't drink. I made sure not to go out drinking.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's a mask, right? So drinking and drugs and trying to just mask your life with these other things, that's not going to ever heal. The universe will keep throwing the same scenario in your face until you wake up and learn.
So let's talk about something you touched on earlier, if you want to elaborate on this, because you started it, but you didn't open it up. And you mentioned the victim mentality and developing a victim mentality. So I can relate to that thought, but I don't know the context. So give us some context, and if you care to elaborate on that, like, let's dive into that a little
bit. So our thoughts are so powerful. What we tell ourselves it's just so powerful. And the evidence of that is we go through life for most of our life with other people's thoughts in our thoughts, like, you're not worthy, you're not capable. That's not, we weren't born thinking that, right? Somebody told us that. Somebody made us feel that way. So we are literally living life and going through life with other people's thoughts in our own heads. What if we snap back? What if we take control of our own thoughts and we say, no, that's not the narrative. That's not the script. I am the producer. I am the director. I am running this show. These are my characters, and this is my script. I am capable. I am worthy. I am valued. And once you start brainwashing yourself, and that takes time and work. I remember saying my mantras going across the bridge to work with tears streaming down my face, because I'm like, I am saying that I'm capable and I'm saying that I'm worthy. I don't feel that. I feel like a fraud, because that's not how I feel about myself. Doesn't matter. Keep saying it. Keep saying it. Keep saying it, because now you can't tell me any different. You cannot. I am unshakable. Go ahead and leave me. I'll be fine. And so it does take practice and practice and practice. But anybody is able to do it. Everybody is able to do it. And I'm not sure I answered your question.
No, that's okay though. That's okay. That was still powerful. The whole affirmations, and then that's the scenario, because earlier in the podcast we talked about how you can't fake it to make it in certain context.
Victimhood, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, but still that was significant, because you talked about how, I can't tell you how many times people doubt and question what they're doing, and I was just watching an interview with Mac Miller, God bless the dead, right? Okay. And he was talking about how, we think when we see these people that are successful and they made it, right? We see them in the mainstream, we see them on TV, music, whatever, and we think that maybe like they're superheroes, or like that maybe they're not humans and they don't have insecurities and fear and everything else. And Mac Miller in this interview was talking about how with like music, and you do a song and you go out there, I mean, you're giving a piece of yourself to the world, and that's not an easy thing to do, right? And it's like you're standing on stage butt naked and wondering like, what are people gonna think? What do I, you know, and with all those insecurities and all those self-doubts, and it's like, but those affirmations, that constant reinforcement, you know, it's conditioning your brain to be positive and to be confident. And you know, you do that long enough, just like exercise, that muscle grows.
It does.
Right? So you're boosting that confidence muscle.
Yeah, and here's the thing too is, you know, positivity isn't just, oh, think positive, or, oh, let me stick my head in the sand and pretend like I never was traumatized and I live, you know, this beautiful life. And it's not that. I have had, and this is how I know I've healed, I've had some traumatic things, and I keep using that word traumatic, but it is. I had a call last night, and I'll just say it. My sister is in the ICU right now in New York. I had a situation a couple of weeks ago with my son that was very jarring. And so my point is, very negative things happen in life, right? They do. What you're manifesting or what you're thinking, oh, I'm thinking these thoughts, and then all of a sudden something out of left field comes out and it's not what you preferred. Being positive isn't, oh, life just goes on. Being positive is looking at that negative, less preferred situation from every angle. Look at it from every freaking angle until you feel an angle that sits better. And you're just choosing the best angle to view that, or the best perspective to view that situation. And that's what you stay with. So it's not being positive per se, it's just finding the better feeling angle of a shitty situation.
Making the best out of a bad situation.
Yeah. And we all have the ability to do that. Right now, my sister being where she is and where I am, I had a hard time in this new realm of spirituality. I'm like, what exactly do I do? Because old self would have been crying her eyes out and like, oh my gosh, and taking off of work and using every last penny to go see her. And then there was another version of myself, because we had been estranged, that would be like, oh, well, you know, that's another life. That's not really my sister anymore. And this new self that I'm in, and that is purely me, because I sat down with myself and I know myself to my inner core for the most part, I understand that she deserves compassion, and she deserves compassion for me. And so I can't do anything right now. So I just think, okay, let me separate myself from my feelings. I recognize that I feel that way. Do I have any control right now? What can I do to help the situation right now? And being where I am in Florida, even though it feels like New York right now, I needed to take a step back, and I meditated, and I just send out this energy, because I understand how energy works, and just sending that energy to her and playing the song that we played when we were little, and sending the person that's with her very dear friend, her best friend, the soundtrack to the HZ frequency so she can play that in her hospital room. Those are the things that I can do for now until I'm called to do something else.
Absolutely.
And so it's just about finding that what can you control right now, because life is hard. Choose your hard.
So that's what's up. And I mean, you say life is hard, right? And it's interesting because now I'm starting to revisit the whole thought behind the victim mentality, right? Because you started to touch on it, and you gave us some good jewels, but I think it's podcast worthy, because I had a thought when you said that, and that thought hasn't fully come out yet. But real quick, I want to talk about a blueprint, right? A blueprint meaning, like we all know what a blueprint is, something that you use to build, right? An architect makes a blueprint, then they build, right? You come up with a design, right? So we all have these blueprints, and our blueprint is basically like our map to life and the philosophy that we develop based off of our thoughts. And so you made a statement, you said life is hard, right? Life can be hard, but that's also a blueprint. And when we take that blueprint, we take everything that comes with that blueprint. So if our blueprint is life is hard, that means that things are going to be hard.
100%.
And now we have to choose our hard, right? You see what I'm saying? But somebody else might say, life is easy. For
That's
that
how I
person,
feel.
maybe life is easy, right? But the whole idea starts to become things, right? And now this ties into the victim mentality, right? So I could go into my personal experience because I had some hard times that I had to go through, and I had to talk to somebody, and that somebody brought me out by saying, like, listen, you're playing this victim game. You're stepping into this victim role. And I'm like, well, hold up. Why? I'm getting defensive, and then,
It's trigger, right?
but then at the same time, but the trigger is how you know it's real, because the trigger is like, okay, so now it's like, all right, well, she's like, this is a counselor that I was speaking to. She's like, you have been a victim, you have, but if you don't step out of that role, you're gonna be a victim for the rest of your life.
100%.
Right? So, like, you think about, so this isn't a prison podcast, so to speak. We're going to talk about prison because I've been to prison.
Of
This
course.
story came from my homeboy, Tim, Big Baby. Shout out Big Baby. Rest in power. So, but, he didn't make it out of prison. And so, the idea is give your gifts to the world before it's too late. Right? And hold on to those dreams and keep pushing for that passion despite the adversity. But I'm saying this to say, I don't know how many people come out of prison. The recidivism rate is over 80%, right? And I'm not trying to open up that whole can of worms right now. And if you don't know what recidivism means, that means going back. Over 80% of people who have been locked up go back. Over 80%, that's over 8 out of 10 people that have been to prison go back, right? And it's probably higher than that, at least 8 out of 10, right? However, if you come out of prison and you develop this victim identity, well, it probably starts when you were in prison. Well, damn, if that motherfucker didn't rat on me, I never would have went to prison.
Even before.
Right? And it's like, okay, you're a victim now, right? You were snitched on. Man, if them people weren't stalking me, if they weren't investigating me, I would have never got fucked up. Okay, so you were a victim. They were targeting you, right? And then you get into prison, and it's like, man, these COs, they won't leave me alone. They're shaking me down every day. All right, so now it's like one victim. Then you get out, nobody give me a job because I'm a convict, right? So it's like just victim role after victim role after victim role. You could be a tough ass motherfucking victim, right? But if you continue to identify with these experiences and own these experiences, then you continue to put yourself in this position to victimize, right?
100%.
So it's like, how do we step out of that?
Accountability.
Okay.
Accountability.
Tell us.
So there's a difference in victim, right? There's victim that is true victim, right? Where and I will say that it probably happens way before prison, way before jail. It happens from childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are growing up and you're not fitting into society because you think differently, ADHD, autism, whatever it is. My son thinks very differently. He would have his back turned to the class, and I only had one teacher that understood this kid. And me being in foster care, I didn't have parents, so I didn't know what I was doing as a parent, so that wasn't great. But I was very strict on him. Instead of teaching him the way that he learned, I was teaching him the way that I thought everybody should be taught. And I think that when you're growing up and you are in these environments where you're not being given tasks to make yourself feel confident or being told that you are capable and worthy and all these great things, and who of us is really. But when we're not being told that, so that grows into, okay, well, I'm going to start getting attention from somewhere, so let me start stealing this, let me start doing this, I'm angry because I get beat when I'm at home, so I'm angry, and so now I'm going to beat that person. Or I really want money because I've been broke, so now I'm going to go steal this. So it happens way early on. I will say that when you become an adult and you start understanding these things, accountability is one of the hardest things to ever do, because you have to face yourself. You have to take accountability. I was in a very codependent relationship. I made that person responsible for my happiness. That is not okay. That is not okay. It is nobody else's responsibility to make you happy other than yourself, but it's so hard and nobody gives you directions to do that. They do the opposite. So it's so hard, but accountability. So my dad was in prison, and he came to visit when he got out. I was in Burlington in college, and he came with his Bible and his suit, and I remember him saying, he just thought that he was going to step in and be this dad, and gave him a shot and said, don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to my little sisters. And whatever, that's a whole nother chapter of life. But I remember visiting his place, and he had a picture on his table, and it was him and the police officer that arrested him. And he was proud in it, and he was out of prison, and he's got this picture with this police officer, the one that arrested him. And I looked at that and I thought, that's awesome. And as soon as I thought that, my dad said, yeah, that's the one that got me arrested. And I said, I beg your pardon, you were the one that got you arrested. My dad and I did not see eye to eye. There was a lot of conflict. He's no longer with us, but a lot of conflict because I was very angry. Right? He left me, he abandoned me, so abandonment issues, daddy issues, all that stuff. But the fact that he, as an adult, he didn't take accountability, so I was constantly throwing accountability in his face. And I'm not sure he ever learned to be accountable. And I think that it's a hard thing to come to terms with things that you're actually responsible for.
Yeah, and it's easy without accountability to suddenly play victim. And it's not even playing victim. You literally become a victim. Your mind is a magnet.
Your mindset
you
is
keep
the
identifying
state.
as a victim.
Yeah.
And that's what you're going to be. And if you don't change that, then you're going to be a victim for the rest of your life. And there's nothing anybody can do to save you but you.
Yeah. And that's why I say that choose your hard. Life is easy for me now. Even though I just said, I went through something jarring with my son and my sister's in the ICU. But life is easy for me now because I don't sink or swim. I just float. I go with what feels right.
You're changing your blueprint.
Yes. And my subconscious is so different now. I just had surgery for something that I needed from actually a childhood thing. And I came up out of the anesthesia, and apparently the nurses were like writing down things that I was saying, but some of the things that I was saying was that I'm divine and
affirmations.
Yeah, like all my affirmations were like coming out. Some songs to some of the songs that I sing in my head about manifestation and meditation, all that was coming out. It was pretty funny, but you can change your mindset. You retrain your brain. But it does get very painful. You have to sit with yourself. You have to become friends with the monsters under your bed. You have to look at yourself in the mirror every day and say, yes, I am responsible for this, but that's not who I am. What I do is not who I am. And so taking that away, you are not that person that did those things. Let's find out who you really are. Where is your heart? And that's who you are. So let's bring more of that out. So accountability isn't blame and guilt and you just sit there. No, you recognize it. You say, I'm accountable for that. Okay, no more. And step out of it. But recognizing that everything happens for a reason, just as it should. And I just hope that everybody learns that bridge to get to where they need to be and where they're meant to be.
And it seems like that you're on the path to potentially help be that bridge for people. Maybe not you be the bridge, but at least guide people to be able to bridge their own gaps?
Yeah, my concept is our bridge is going to look different. My bridge that helped me were certain tools that may not help somebody else. You know, you love a different type of music, you know, and doing the podcast. And so we all have our own passions. The idea is that our bridge is made out of things that are healthy. Okay. So it has to be healthy practices, and you have to stick with some of it every single day. And it really all does start with gratitude.
Amen.
Gratitude is, if you are not grateful, it's hard to be grateful too when you're in a victim state too, because you're like, well, you know, I don't have this, and so many years of me saying I wasn't ever an adopted child, and I didn't have parents, and I don't have a family, and I don't have anywhere to go, and nobody buys me gifts, and blah blah blah. Oh my God. And now I just spent the last Christmas in a hotel lobby by myself, and it was heaven. I was journaling, I was listening to music, and I was just getting to know me on Christmas Day. No presents, and it was amazing. So you can find happiness within yourself, but it does start with getting help, taking accountability, and learning who you are, and unraveling the mess that's inside your head.
Beautiful. Well, you know, you talked about gratitude, and I'll tell you what, I'm incredibly grateful to have you on the platform, and I feel like you manifested this, right?
I did. You're welcome.
So here you are, you got the cameras, you got the audience. I want to make sure that you get your message out. I feel like you did, but if there's any closing remarks that you want to share with the audience, anything that you have that you want to promote, any call to action. I know you have the website, if you want to direct the people to the website,
sure.
And your socials. So there they are. Tell them what you...
It's me, Catalina. So I'm not really on Facebook, but on TikTok I am Queen Catalina Rises, and then on Instagram, which I'm mostly on, I am Catalina Rises. So post a lot of things about manifestation and overcoming trauma and things like that. You'll find all that good stuff. You may even catch some videos of me dancing and choreographing on there, and on my amazingly beautiful support system of friends. And what I have to say is, and I kept getting around to this, is choose your heart. And what that means is you can be depressed and be a victim and keep blaming others and maybe get tired and not go to work because you're tired. Or you can get up and go to work, and you can do the hard things, and you can make yourself do those things that have the better benefits, because you know, if you choose the path of hard this way that doesn't have those good long-term benefits, you know where you're going to wind up. It's just going to be repeating, and it's just not going to be good. But if you make yourself do the hard things this way, where you are continuing on with life and getting help and going and getting a job, whatever struggles that you have, it'll eventually work out. It all starts with your inner thoughts and just changing that narrative. The call to action that I have for people is to first become aware of what your thoughts are. You can't change something, and it's exhausting to change something in moment. But so I think that the first step is just to simply become aware of what you're thinking for the most part on a day-to-day. Just let those thoughts pass. Maybe write them down, but just recognize, negative, that was a little victim-y. And just being aware of what those thoughts are. Try to do that for 21 days. Write them down. And then when you write them down, write down the person that you'd rather be, or the person that or the feeling that you would rather feel. Write the opposite down and change that narrative, and start writing those mantras down and start telling yourself those more positive things. And I will tell you that in time, at first it's going to be hard, but in time, your life will change.
Amen. So I always do this every show, because you said your IG handles, but not all of us know how to spell out here. So, yeah, so tell them where to find you. Okay. And then I don't know if you want to share the website. You got a website out
there,
yes,
right? I do. So the website is www.catalinarises, and that's CATALINARISES.com. And so that same CATALINARISES, that is at on my Instagram, and then it's just Queen in front of it, QUEEN for TikTok.
Okay. Catalina Rises with a C, y'all.
Oh yes, with C.
Yes. So thank you so much for blessing our platform today. It's been an honor to have you as a guest. Thank you for sharing your story. So y'all make sure you check her out. Catalina Rises, CatalinaRises.com, Catalina Rises on IG, and what was the other one? Catalina.
The www.
The Queen.
Queen. That's on TikTok.
Okay, that's TikTok. Okay.
Queen Catalina Rises on TikTok.
Queen Catalina Rises. Okay. Okay. So thank you all for tuning in. If you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification button, drop a comment, share with anybody you think that would be interested in this story. If you want to potentially get on here and tell your story, reach out, shoot me a DM. If you want to talk about your business, we're looking for sponsors. Reach out, shoot me a DM. I want to thank everybody that's been riding with us. We are 2 seasons in. And so if you haven't checked out season 1 and you want to know a little bit more about me, MP, your host, go watch the whole first season. I tell you more about me than you ever want to know. But if you're not interested, just keep watching. I'm going to have a lot of amazing guests on here, as you can see. Thank you, Catalina. So make sure you hit that notification button so you get the alerts. We're dropping content every single week, y'all. I want to thank every single one of you. It's Live Struggle Legacy. We building people millions.
Live struggle legacy. It's a whole movement.